You know that moment when you're lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to an IV because you thought organic zucchini and cheap Pinot Grigio made a good dinner combination, and your neighbor calls to tell you she just saw your husband's car at your Lakehouse with someone who definitely wasn't you? Yeah, well, apparently that's what they call a plot twist in suburban Michigan. I'm Linda Garcia, 42 years old, substitute teacher by day, and apparently amateur detective by necessity. 3 days ago, I was convinced my biggest problem was explaining to my principal why I couldn't come to work, because I'd given myself food poisoning trying to be healthy. Boy, was I wrong. Let me paint you the picture of my glamorous Tuesday morning. There I was, in room 247 of Beaumont Hospital in Royal Oak, wearing one of those delightful gowns that makes you question your life choices, when my phone buzzed. It was Martha Hendricks from next door. You know the type, the woman who waters her petunias precisely when the most interesting neighborhood drama unfolds. Pure coincidence, I'm sure. "Linda, honey." Martha's voice came through the phone with that special tone reserved for delivering devastating news disguised as concern. "I hope you're feeling better, but I thought you should know. Bob's Chevy Silverado is parked at your Lakehouse right now, with a red Honda Civic I've never seen before. Now, here's the thing about being married to Bob Garcia for 18 years. I know his patterns better than he knows them himself. Tuesday mornings are for client calls. Our Lakehouse in Caseville is a weekend retreat, not a Tuesday afternoon destination. And Bob wouldn't drive up there alone because, and I quote from our last anniversary dinner, "What's the point of having a Lakehouse if there's nobody to complain about the Wi-Fi with?" But here's what really got my attention. Bob had specifically told me he was swamped with insurance claims this week and couldn't visit me until Thursday. Apparently, he found time in his busy schedule after all. "Martha," I said, trying to keep my voice steady while my heart rate monitor started beeping like a smoke detector. "What kind of Honda Civic are we talking about? Red? Newer model? One of those cute little ones. Has a bumper sticker that says Storage Solutions on it." Storage Solutions. I knew exactly who drove a red Honda Civic with a Storage Solutions bumper sticker. Amanda Mitchell, 38, manager of the U-Store IT facility on Main Street, where Bob had been renting a unit for his fishing equipment that apparently required climate-controlled storage year-round. The same Amanda who'd been unusually friendly at the 4th of July block party, asking detailed questions about our Lakehouse. The same Amanda who'd complimented Bob's grilling technique with the enthusiasm usually reserved for winning lottery tickets. The same Amanda who'd somehow gotten my husband's phone number to coordinate neighborhood watch schedules. I should mention that we don't have a neighborhood watch. We live in a subdivision where the biggest crime is Mrs. Peterson's cat using everyone else's garden as a litter box. "Linda, you still there, honey?" "Yeah, Martha. Just processing this information." Processing was putting it mildly. I was mentally calculating how long it takes to drive from our house in Bloomfield Hills to the Lakehouse in Caseville. 2.5 hours on a good day. Enough time for Bob to spin quite the elaborate story about his whereabouts. The nurse walked in at that moment, Janet, a woman who'd perfected the art of delivering bad news with a smile. "Mrs. Garcia, your tests came back clean. Doctor says you can go home this afternoon." Perfect timing. While Bob was apparently playing house with Amanda, the storage solutions expert, I was about to become a free woman with a sudden abundance of time and motivation. "Martha, I need you to do me a favor," I said, my mind already formulating a plan that would make Sun Tzu proud. "Can you keep an eye on that situation for me? Maybe take some photos if you get the chance? You know, for documentation purposes." "Oh, honey, I've already got 17 pictures on my phone. Different angles, timestamps, the whole 9 yards. This is better than my soap operas." Of course she did. Martha had missed her calling as a private investigator, or a stalker. The line was increasingly blurry. Here's what was really eating at me. It wasn't just the cheating. I mean, that was bad enough. But using our Lakehouse, the place where we'd celebrated anniversaries, hosted family reunions, where I'd painted the kitchen cabinets that hideous shade of coastal blue because Bob insisted it would be relaxing? That was personal. The Lakehouse had been my sanctuary. Every weekend, I'd drive up there with my lesson plans and my romance novels, sitting on the deck overlooking the water, planning creative ways to teach 7th graders about the Revolutionary War. Bob would join me for barbecues and fishing trips that mostly involved him napping in the boat while I actually caught the fish. And now he was there, making new memories with someone whose biggest accomplishment was organizing other people's junk in metal boxes. "Mrs. Garcia?" Janet was looking at me with concern. "Your heart rate just spiked again. Are you feeling all right?" "Just thinking about home improvements," I said sweetly. "You know how exciting renovations can be." The renovation I had in mind involved changing every lock in that Lakehouse, and maybe a few other modifications that would make Bob's next visit particularly memorable. As I signed my discharge papers, I couldn't help but smile. Bob thought he was being clever, sneaking around while his wife was safely tucked away in the hospital. What he didn't realize was that he'd just given me the perfect opportunity to show him exactly how creative a substitute teacher could get when properly motivated. After all, I'd spent years dealing with middle schoolers trying to outsmart me. Compared to 13-year-olds, a cheating husband was amateur hour. The best part? Bob had no idea I knew. He was probably planning to waltz back home tomorrow with some story about being stuck in back-to-back client meetings, maybe bringing me flowers to ease his guilty conscience. Meanwhile, I'd be making some improvements to our romantic getaway. Game on, Bobby. Game on. The ride home from the hospital gave me 2.5 hours to plan my strategy. And let me tell you, substitute teaching middle school had prepared me for psychological warfare in ways I never appreciated until now. Those kids think they're manipulative? Please. They've got nothing on a Michigan housewife with time on her hands and a cheating husband to deal with. First stop, Home Depot. Because nothing says fresh start, like changing every lock in your weekend getaway while your husband is busy playing house with the storage unit queen. I pulled into the parking lot of the Home Depot on Woodward Avenue, still wearing my I survived food poisoning outfit of yoga pants and a Detroit Lions hoodie. Classy, I know. But sometimes comfort trumps fashion, especially when you're about to commit what I like to call justifiable home modification. The lock aisle was intimidating. Rows and rows of silver and brass hardware that might as well have been labeled in ancient Greek. Fortunately, a teenager named Kyle with a badge and an enthusiasm for hardware that bordered on suspicious was eager to help. "So you want to change all the locks in your Lakehouse?" Kyle asked, loading my cart with enough deadbolts to secure Fort Knox. "Spring cleaning project?" "Something like that," I said. "More like a pest control situation. Sometimes you have to keep the rats out." Kyle nodded knowingly. "Oh yeah, lake houses get all kinds of critters. My dad's place up in Traverse City had a family of raccoons move in one winter. Took forever to get rid of them. If only my problem were raccoons. At least they're cute and don't leave their underwear in places where they don't belong." Next stop, Martha's house. If I was going to execute this plan properly, I needed intelligence. Real-time intelligence. Martha answered her door before I could even knock. She'd been watching for me through her kitchen window naturally. "Linda, you look terrible, honey. Hospital food will do that to you." She ushered me into her living room, which had been converted into what could only be described as a surveillance command center. "I've got updates." Martha's coffee table was covered with printed photos, her iPad showing what appeared to be a Google Earth view of our Lakehouse, and a notebook with timestamps written in the precise handwriting of someone who'd watched too many crime documentaries. "They arrived yesterday at 2:47 p.m., Martha began, flipping through her evidence like a prosecutor. Bob carried in 2 bags of groceries. Looked like he was planning to stay a while. Amanda brought an overnight bag and what appeared to be a bottle of champagne. Champagne. At my Lakehouse. Using my good glasses, probably. The ones I'd specifically told Bob were only for special occasions. This morning, they were out on the deck having coffee at 8:15 a.m., Martha continued. Amanda was wearing one of those silk robes. You know, the kind that costs more than my car payment. Bob was in his boxers and that ratty Michigan State t-shirt he refuses to throw away. The mental image was both infuriating and slightly nauseating. Bob in his lucky underwear, living his best life with someone who organized storage units for a living. The irony wasn't lost on me. He'd found someone whose job was literally containing other people's messes, and now she was about to become the biggest mess of his life. They went for a boat ride around 10:30. Martha added. Came back around noon, and that's when things got interesting. Interesting how? Martha leaned forward conspiratorially. They started arguing. I couldn't hear everything, but I definitely caught Amanda saying something about your wife, and Bob waving his hands around like he does when he's trying to explain why he forgot to pay the electric bill. Trouble in paradise already? How romantic. Oh, and Linda? Martha pulled out her phone and showed me the screen. You might want to see this. It was a Facebook post from Amanda's account, time-stamped 47 minutes ago. Sometimes the best views come from unexpected places. Lakehouse, shark-blessed new chapter. She'd posted a picture of our deck. Our deck. The one I'd spent 3 weekends staining last summer while Bob watched football inside and provided unhelpful commentary about my brush technique. The audacity was breathtaking. Not only was she sleeping with my husband in my lake house, she was bragging about it on social media, using hashtags that made me want to throw my phone into the nearest body of water. Martha, I need another favor, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me like a pressure cooker about to explode. Can you keep monitoring the situation? I want to know exactly when they leave. Honey, I've already called my sister to bring dinner. I'm not moving from this window until this situation resolves itself. God bless Martha and her commitment to neighborhood drama. My phone buzzed with a text from Bob. Hey babe, stuck in meetings all day. Probably won't make it home until late tonight. Order some soup. Get your rest. Love you. Love you. The man was texting me lies while drinking champagne with another woman at our lake house, and he signed it, Love you. The casual cruelty of it was almost impressive. I texted back, Thanks, honey. Feeling much better. Planning to do some organizing today. Love you too. If Bob had been paying attention to the subtle art of spousal communication, he might have noticed that organizing was code for, your life is about to become very complicated. But Bob had never been great with subtext. By 4 p.m., I was back on the road to Caseville, my Honda Pilot loaded with enough locks to secure a small fortress. The drive gave me time to think about the logistics of what I was about to do. Breaking into my own lake house felt surreal, but technically it was half mine. The other half was about to become significantly less accessible to its current occupant. The plan was simple. Wait for them to leave, change every lock, and then sit back and enjoy the show when they returned for their romantic evening. I'd already booked a room at the Hampton Inn in Bay City, close enough to watch the drama unfold, far enough away to have plausible deniability. As I drove past the familiar landmarks, the Dairy Queen where we always stopped for ice cream, the bait shop where Bob bought lottery tickets that never won, the gas station where I'd filled up countless times for weekend getaways, I realized something profound. I wasn't just changing locks, I was changing my entire life. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I was actually excited about what came next. The lake house came into view just as Martha called with an update. They just left in Bob's truck. Looked like they were heading into town. You've got your window, honey. Time to get to work. There's something deeply therapeutic about changing locks when your husband is off playing house with someone else. It's like meditation. If meditation involved power tools and the systematic elimination of unwanted access to your personal space. I parked behind the lake house, hidden by the oak tree Bob had been threatening to trim for 5 years. The irony wasn't lost on me. His procrastination was now providing perfect cover for my lock-changing operation. The first lock took me 20 minutes to figure out. The YouTube tutorial I'd watched in the hospital parking lot made it look simple. But apparently there's a difference between watching someone else use a screwdriver and actually manipulating tiny metal pieces while running on hospital coffee and pure adrenaline. But by the third lock, I'd found my rhythm. Front door, back door, sliding door to the deck. Each one getting replaced with shiny new hardware that Bob had never seen before. I was like a locksmith warrior, fueled by righteous indignation and the growing satisfaction of a plan coming together. That's when I found the evidence that changed everything. I was installing the final lock on the basement door when I noticed Bob's fishing equipment storage bin sitting open on the floor. Curious, and operating under the principle that all rules were off when your spouse was actively cheating, I took a peek. No fishing equipment. Instead, I found a collection of items that painted a very different picture of my husband's double life. Hotel receipts dating back 8 months, printed emails discussing weekend getaways, and a jewelry box containing a ring that definitely wasn't for me. 8 months. This wasn't some sudden midlife crisis fling. This was a fully orchestrated second relationship, complete with anniversary planning and future promises. Bob hadn't just cheated. He'd been building an entire alternate life while I was grading papers and planning our family vacation to Mackinac Island. But here's where it gets interesting. The emails weren't just romantic exchanges. They were business discussions. Amanda wasn't just stealing my husband. She was apparently his business partner in some kind of storage facility investment scheme. My husband, who couldn't balance our checkbook without my help, was planning to buy storage facilities with his girlfriend, using our joint savings account. I sat on the basement floor, surrounded by evidence of my husband's elaborate deception, and started laughing. Not the hysterical kind of laughter that meant I was having a breakdown, the genuinely amused kind that meant I'd just realized how spectacularly this was about to backfire on him. See, Bob had made one crucial mistake in his master plan. He'd forgotten that I was the one who handled all our finances. Every bank account, every investment, every credit card. I managed it all because Bob couldn't be trusted to remember which bills were due when. And our joint savings account, the one he was planning to use for his storage facility adventure, required both signatures for withdrawals over $5,000. A safety measure I'd insisted on years ago when Bob nearly bought a jet ski without consulting me. My phone buzzed with a text from Martha. "They're back. Just pulled in. Amanda's carrying what looks like takeout bags. Looks like they're settling in for the evening." Perfect timing. I gathered up all the evidence, locked it safely in my car, and prepared for the most satisfying part of my plan. But first, I needed to make a few phone calls. Call number 1. Our bank. "Hi, this is Linda Garcia. I need to put a temporary hold on large withdrawals from our joint savings account." "Yes, I'll hold." The customer service representative was helpful and discreet. The account was now locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Any withdrawal over $1,000 would require both account holders to appear in person with identification. Call number 2, my sister-in-law Maria, who happened to be a divorce attorney in Grand Rapids. "Maria, hypothetically speaking, if someone discovered their spouse was planning to drain their joint savings account to buy property with their affair partner, what would be the smartest way to protect themselves?" "Hypothetically," Maria said, and I could hear her shifting into lawyer mode. "That person should document everything, secure all financial accounts, and probably have a conversation with a family law attorney." Hypothetically. And if this hypothetical person had photos, emails, and hotel receipts proving an 8-month affair, then this hypothetical person should probably start thinking about whether they want to save the marriage or save themselves. Call number 3, the most important one. I dialed the number for Caseville's finest locksmith service, a 24-hour operation that catered to the summer cottage crowd. "Hi, this is Linda Garcia. I need an emergency lock repair at my Lakehouse tomorrow morning. What time can you be here?" 9 a.m.? Perfect. And yes, I'll need you to document that these locks were changed at the homeowner's request. The plan was evolving beautifully. Bob and Amanda would spend their romantic evening in the Lakehouse, probably celebrating their future business partnership and whatever anniversary they were marking. Tomorrow morning, they'd leave for work, Bob to his insurance office, Amanda to her storage facility. And when they returned tomorrow evening for round 2 of their romantic getaway, they'd find themselves locked out with official documentation that the locks had been changed by the legal homeowner due to security concerns. But I wasn't done yet. The best part was still to come. I drove to the Hampton Inn, checked into my room, and opened my laptop. Time for some creative social media management. First, I created a private Facebook album titled Lakehouse Security Update and uploaded all of Martha's time-stamped photos. Then I started a group chat with my 3 closest friends, Sarah, Jessica, and Nancy, women who'd known Bob almost as long as I had. "Ladies, I need your help with a little project," I typed. "Bob seems to have forgotten that our Lakehouse has security cameras." It was a lie, but a strategic one. We didn't have security cameras, but Bob didn't know that. And by tomorrow, when he was panicking about being locked out, The possibility that everything had been recorded would add a delicious layer of paranoia to his situation. My phone rang. It was Martha again. "Linda, you need to see this. They're out on the deck with candles and everything. Bob's got his guitar out." His guitar, the one he played exactly twice a year, usually after too much beer and always badly. He was serenading his storage facility manager with the same 3 chords he'd been butchering since college. "Martha, do me a favor. Record it if you can. I have a feeling Bob's musical talents are about to become very important evidence." As I settled into my hotel room for the night, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Complete clarity. Tomorrow, Bob would discover that his carefully constructed double life had some serious structural problems. And Amanda would learn that her new boyfriend came with significantly more baggage than she'd bargained for. The best part? They'd figure it all out together, locked outside the Lakehouse, with nothing but each other and Bob's terrible guitar playing for comfort. Sometimes justice comes with a soundtrack. Thursday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn weather that makes Michigan Lake Country look like a postcard. Perfect conditions for what I was already thinking of as the Great Lakehouse Lockout of 2024. I positioned myself at a coffee shop in downtown Caseville with a clear view of the Lakehouse Road, armed with my laptop, Martha's real-time updates, and the kind of anticipation usually reserved for season finales of really good TV shows. At 8:47 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Bob. "Morning, babe. Another crazy day ahead. Might be late again tonight. How are you feeling?" I texted back. "Much better. Planning to get some fresh air today. Might take a drive. Love you." The might take a drive part was technically true. I was already driving, just not where Bob thought I was. At 9:15 a.m., Martha called with the morning report. They just left. Bob's truck heading toward town. Amanda looked like she was dressed for work. Perfect. The locksmith would arrive in 15 minutes, and by the time Bob and Amanda returned for their evening rendezvous, they'd find a significantly different security situation. The locksmith, a cheerful guy named Pete, who'd been securing lake houses for 20 years, arrived right on schedule. "Mrs. Garcia, heard you needed some emergency lock work?" "That's right. Security concerns. I need documentation that these locks were changed at the homeowner's request, and I'll need a receipt showing today's date and time." Pete nodded professionally. "No problem. Happens more often than you'd think, especially with rental properties and domestic situations." I didn't correct his assumption about the domestic situation. Some truths were better left unspoken. While Pete worked, I made a few more strategic phone calls. The first was to Bob's office. "Hartwell Insurance, this is Donna speaking." "Hi, Donna, this is Linda Garcia, Bob's wife. I'm planning a surprise for Bob, and I need to know what time he usually leaves the office. Don't tell him I called." Donna giggled conspiratorially. "Oh, how sweet. He usually heads out around 5:30, but Wednesdays and Thursdays he sometimes leaves early for client visits. Today he said he had a meeting that might run late." "A meeting?" "Sure, Bob. A very special client meeting that required an overnight bag and champagne." The second call was to Storage Solutions. "Hi, is Amanda in? This is Linda from the Neighborhood Watch Committee. We're organizing a community appreciation event, and we wanted to include local business owners." The receptionist was helpful. "Amanda's here until 5 p.m. today, but she mentioned she had evening plans. Would you like her to call you back?" "No need. I'll catch up with her later." Everything was falling into place like a well-orchestrated symphony of justice. By 2 p.m., Pete had finished installing the new locks, and I had a stack of official receipts documenting the security upgrade. The lake house was now Fort Linda, accessible only to those with proper authorization. At 4:30 p.m., I received the text I'd been waiting for. Bob sending his usual running late message, followed 20 minutes later by another message. "Might not make it home tonight. This client situation is complicated." Martha called at 5:15 p.m. Bob's truck just pulled in, Amanda's car right behind him. They've got grocery bags and what looks like a bottle of wine. Setting up for another romantic evening, I'd say. "Perfect. How's your camera charged?" "Honey, I've got backup batteries and a front row seat. This is better than pay-per-view." At 6:30 p.m., my phone exploded with calls. The first was from Bob, which I let go to voicemail. The second was from Bob again. The third was from a number I didn't recognize, probably Amanda's phone. I listened to Bob's voicemail. Linda, something weird is going on at the Lakehouse. The locks don't work. Did you change the locks? Call me back. This is really important. The panic in his voice was delicious. Martha called immediately after. Oh my God, Linda. They've been trying to get in for 10 minutes. Bob's walking around the house checking every door and window like some kind of burglar. Amanda's standing by her car looking like she wants to disappear into the ground. Are they arguing yet? Not yet. But Bob keeps pointing at the doors and shaking his head. Amanda's on her phone, probably Googling locksmiths. Well, they'll be disappointed. Most locksmiths won't open a house without proof of ownership, and I have all the documentation right here. My phone buzzed with another call from Bob. This time I answered. Hi, honey, how was your day? Linda, what the hell? What's going on with the Lakehouse? The keys don't work. Oh, that's so strange. Are you at the Lakehouse? I thought you had client meetings all day. Silence. Beautiful, panicked silence. The client wanted to meet at the Lakehouse. It's complicated. Well, that is complicated. Especially since I changed all the locks this morning for security reasons. You know how break-ins have been increasing in the area. More silence. Then, you changed the locks? When? Why didn't you tell me? I tried to call you this morning, but you said you were busy with meetings. I left a voicemail. Didn't you get it? He hadn't, of course, because I hadn't left one. But Bob was too panicked to think clearly. Linda, I need the new keys. Can you bring them up here? Oh, honey, I'm not feeling well enough to drive that far, but I could mail them to you. They should arrive by Saturday. I could practically hear his blood pressure spiking. Saturday. Linda, I need to get in tonight. Well, you could try a locksmith, but most of them require proof of ownership. Good thing I have all our property documents here at home. Martha called on my other line. I put Bob on hold. Linda, you need to hear this. They're fighting. Bob's yelling something about complications, and Amanda just threw her purse on the ground. I switched back to Bob. Honey, are you still there? It sounds windy. Linda, please. This is really important. Can't you drive up here with the keys? I'm sorry, sweetheart, but I'm just too weak from being in the hospital. Maybe your client could reschedule? Another long pause. My client, this is really complicated, Linda. Life often is, honey. But look on the bright side. At least you're not alone. Your client can keep you company while you figure out where to spend the night. I hung up and immediately called Martha back. Status report. Oh, honey, it's getting good. Amanda just got in her car and peeled out of the driveway. Bob's standing there in the rain looking like someone stole his puppy. And it's starting to rain harder. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. My phone rang again. Bob, naturally. I let it go to voicemail this time. Then I opened my laptop and started typing a Facebook post. Lakehouse security upgrade complete. Sometimes you have to change the locks to keep the unwanted pests out. Dar home improvement. Security first, dar fresh start. The post got 7 likes within the first 5 minutes. Martha commented, Best security upgrade ever. Justice, it turned out, came with excellent Wi-Fi and real-time social media feedback. 3 weeks later, I'm sitting on the deck of my Lakehouse. Yes, mine now. Thanks to some excellent legal advice from Maria and Bob's surprisingly generous guilt-induced settlement offer. Watching the sunset over Lake Huron with a glass of wine that costs more than my old weekly grocery budget. The wine tastes like victory. Sweet, complex, with notes of, I can't believe I put up with that for 18 years. And a finish that suggests, my bank account is significantly healthier now. Bob, it turns out, was remarkably cooperative during our divorce negotiations. Apparently, when your soon-to-be ex-wife has photos, bank records, and a neighbor who's basically a surveillance expert, you become very motivated to settle out of court. Who knew? The storage facility investment scheme never materialized, mainly because Amanda decided she wasn't ready for a business partnership with someone whose wife could change locks faster than he could come up with believable lies. She transferred to a U-Store It location in Flint, far enough away to avoid awkward encounters at the Kroger, but close enough that Bob could visit if he wanted to reminisce about their 3-day romance. He doesn't visit. Apparently, Amanda wasn't as enthusiastic about his guitar playing as he'd hoped. Martha has become something of a local celebrity. Her documentation skills were so impressive that 3 other women in the neighborhood have hired her as a domestic intelligence consultant. She's thinking about making it official and getting a private investigator's license. I told her she should definitely pursue it. She's got natural talent and an existing client base. The Lakehouse has undergone what I like to call a renovation of the soul. I repainted the kitchen cabinets from that hideous coastal blue to a cheerful yellow that makes me smile every morning. I replaced Bob's ugly leather recliner with a reading chair that actually fits through the door. And I installed actual security cameras. Not for protection, but because the irony amuses me. I've also started a YouTube channel called Lakehouse Linda, where I share home improvement tips, local restaurant reviews, and what I diplomatically call life transition advice. The episode about changing locks has 47,000 views and counting. Turns out, a lot of people can relate to the need for better home security. My teaching career has taken an unexpected turn too. The principal, Mrs. Davidson, was so impressed with my crisis management skills, her words, that she offered me a full-time position teaching life skills to high school seniors. Apparently, my experience in detecting deception and managing complex situations translated well to preparing teenagers for the real world. Who knew that discovering your husband's affair could be such excellent professional development? The funny thing is, I'm not angry anymore. That surprised me more than anything. I expected to spend months, maybe years, processing the betrayal and working through feelings of inadequacy. Instead, I feel like someone who's been wearing shoes that were 2 sizes too small for years and finally realized they could just buy new shoes. Bob wasn't evil, just weak and remarkably bad at planning. His great escape plan had more holes than a screen door, and his romantic gestures had all the sophistication of a middle school dance. Amanda wasn't a master manipulator, just a woman who thought she'd found someone with more to offer than he actually had. The whole situation was less criminal mastermind and more amateur hour at the community theater. I got a postcard last week from Bob, who's now living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Sterling Heights and selling insurance with the enthusiasm of someone who's realized his life peaked in high school. The postcard showed the Detroit skyline and simply said, "Hope you're well." B. I sent one back, a picture of my Lakehouse deck at sunset. The message read, "Never been better. Thanks for asking. L." It wasn't meant to be cruel, just honest. I really have never been better. The substitute teaching jobs have dried up because I'm no longer available for last-minute calls. I'm too busy living my actual life instead of filling in for other people's absences. I've joined a book club, started learning photography, and discovered that I actually enjoy cooking when I'm not trying to accommodate someone else's bizarre food preferences. Bob insisted that casseroles were too complicated, and sandwiches should never contain more than 3 ingredients. The man's culinary standards were as low as his moral ones. This weekend, I'm hosting my first official Lakehouse party. Sarah, Jessica, and Nancy are driving up from Detroit. Martha's bringing her famous potato salad, and we're going to celebrate what I'm calling the first annual Liberation Day weekend. The weather forecast calls for perfect conditions, sunny, warm, with gentle breezes off the lake. No storms on the horizon, no unexpected complications, no mysterious overnight guests requiring emergency lock changes. Just friends, laughter, good wine, and the kind of peace that comes from knowing exactly where you stand in your own life. As the sun sets over the water, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that would make a greeting card jealous, I raise my glass to the evening breeze. Here's to changing locks, changing lives, and the beautiful simplicity of keeping the wrong people out and letting the right ones in. Cheers to fresh starts, second chances, and the sweet satisfaction of a plan that worked exactly as intended. Sometimes the best view really does come from unexpected places, and sometimes, justice tastes like expensive wine and sounds like the gentle lapping of waves against your very own dock.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.